Hi, this is Tiara Chadran, and the purpose of this presentation is to fulfill an assignment requirement for the course EDU 650, Supporting English Language Learners at CalU. And the course is taught by Dr. Rutledge. So this is Academic Words and Phrases lesson. So before I begin my rationale for this lesson, this activity has helped me to better understand that knowledge of vocabulary goes just beyond meaning of a word, and it really requires you to consider the cultural influences that could be affecting your understanding, feelings and attitudes that are associated with the words. How does this word function? How can I use this? What is the purpose of it? What part of speech is it? There are so many things to consider as a teacher when teaching vocabulary in general, let alone to a student who is learning English and coming from a different background. So in order to help the child fully understand the word just beyond a definition, it's really important to consider these many aspects. So I feel that this activity has really helped me to see how much preparation has to go into my lessons, not only just the lesson itself, but how am I preparing for the accommodations and modifications that a student who is an ELL may need? How am I priming them for the lesson so that they can be more included throughout? So I feel that this activity has really helped to improve my teaching techniques. And I think that this will positively impact the learning of my students, not only just for the ELLs, but for everybody. So before I get started, I'm going to give you a brief student description. The student that I have been framing my lesson around, her name is Kiskia. She is an 8-year-old girl who was born in Haiti but now lives in the U.S. And her primary spoken language at home is French Creole. And she is in 2nd grade. And she is very eager to learn despite the struggles that she faces as an ELL. And right now on the English language proficiency descriptor, she is testing at a level 3, which is developing. So this indicates that she speaks in expanded sentences with both her oral and written interactions. And there may exist some phonological, syntactic, or semantic errors that may serve to impede communication, but for the most part, much of the meaning is preserved. So just as a brief lesson summary before I get started, I chose at the beginning of the semester to do a math lesson, which has served to be pretty challenging. I'm not going to lie, but we have been workshopping this lesson throughout the semester, and it is on benchmark numbers. So real quick, the objectives that I have for this lesson include that the student will be able to calculate a relationship between a given number and a benchmark number with teacher promptings. The student will be able to verbally restate and correlate respond with the class as we go through the steps and discover the relationships between the numbers using manipulatives to figure it out. And then number 3, the student will be able to solve problems that are verbally provided independently. And lastly, the student will be able to discuss and reflect the application of the strategy in order to solve a problem with a small group of students. So additionally, that was my base lesson, but additionally we have workshopped and added some different components. So I added a reading component beforehand where I will read to the students a book entitled Place Value, and we will discuss and talk about place value um, prior to diving into the lesson. And then I added a writing component following the lesson, kind of as a supplement to it, where the student will then create their own word problems using somewhat of a framework that I have provided for them. So the lesson has been expanded, and today I'm going to add in kind of a pre-teaching lesson where we will go over some of the vocabulary prior to teaching the lesson so that the students have the best opportunity to remain included throughout the lesson and kind of break down some of those language and communication barriers. So as I move into the lesson, I should warn you, kind of my teaching style is a very multisensory approach. I really try to get the students to stay engaged with a lot of call and response, using things that are hands-on, lots of visuals. So this lesson may serve to be a little bit awkward as I will just be speaking solely on my own with this PowerPoint. So hopefully it's not too awkward for you and you kind of understand what I'm trying to get at here. So upon looking at the different tiers of vocab words, I chose 3 academic or content words from my lesson. I chose the word strategy because I am specifically talking about a strategy in the lesson. It's directly related to the content because then they have to discuss the strategy. I chose the word manipulative because that is used many times, also directly related to what they are doing. And benchmark number because that is the title. And all of these words could serve to be multifunctional. So I try to discuss them mainly in the math terms for the students. My tier 2 word I chose, or phrase, is problem solve. I use the word solve many times, solve the problem or problem solve. The phrase that I chose was what gets me to. So that's kind of like a pulled out word cluster from a larger sentence. For example, I would say, I start with 74. What number gets me to 80? So what gets me to can serve to be a little confusing, especially if you're not familiar with the English language. So the teaching methods I chose to use were a version of the 4 corners vocabulary that was described in the PowerPoint. I chose to use a synonyms in sentences technique, and then I'm using example and non-example as well to help illustrate the words and phrases. Okay, so I would first have a blank version of this box on a sheet copied for the students, and I will have them get a clipboard, writing utensil, and come sit on the carpet in front of this smartboard. So let's go ahead and begin the lesson. All right, class. So today, before we begin our lesson, we are going to talk about some of the words that we will be using. So the first word we are talking about is the word strategy. Let's all say that together. Strategy. Awesome. So everybody point to the top box on the left, and I want you to write the word strategy there. STRATEGY, strategy. Awesome. Pencils down. So can anybody raise their hand and tell me what they know about the word strategy? Have you ever heard this word used before? Awesome. So the definition that we are going to use for strategy is a method or a way to solve a problem. So we are talking about a math lesson. So we are going to figure out a way to solve the problem. So let's everybody read that together. A method or a way to solve a problem. And go ahead and write that in the definition box right there. Good. Can anybody raise their hand and tell me some examples of a math strategy that we have used in the past? Good. We have number line, we have counting on, number cubes, draw a picture, write a number sentence. There are so many different strategies. Awesome. Now, if you move to the top box on the right, that says illustration. Another word for illustration is a drawing or picture. So can we draw a picture of one of the examples that you chose? Good. There are many different things you could draw here, but just pick one and draw it. Good. Now let's move on to this sentence box right below it. So the sentence box says, which math strategy will you choose to solve this problem? So I chose this sentence because it directly relates to what we're doing today, choosing a strategy. Can anybody else think of another strategy or another sentence they can write with the word strategy in it? Good. All right, and then the last box says the word non-example. So a non-example is something that is not strategy. So when I think of strategy, I think of a way to solve a problem. Now, a way to not solve a problem would be by saying, I give up, or I can't. So those were my non-examples. Can anybody think of anything else they can write in that box? Awesome. All right, let's move on to our next set of boxes. Good. All right, our next word we are going to talk about is the word manipulative. Everybody say that with me. Manipulative. Okay, we are going to write that in our vocabulary word box. Good. And then let's go ahead down to the next box that says definition. So let's read it together. Objects that we use to help us act out and visualize the problem hands-on. So manipulative. We have used manipulatives in class before. Raise your hand if you can think of a manipulative that we have in this class. Very good. We have our snap cubes, our color counters, tanagrams, our cubes. There are so many manipulatives that we have in this class. Good. Now pick one of those and draw a picture in the illustration or drawing box. Good. And then we'll move on to the sentence box. So the sentence that I chose is a reminder to all of my students. It says, the teacher said the manipulatives are tools, not toys. Raise your hand if you remember me saying this before. Good, good. Who else can think of a sentence using the word manipulatives? Awesome. All right, and then for our non-example, since we are talking about the word manipulative in a math term, another non-example would be the word manipulative to describe somebody's behavior. So a girl can be sly, selfish, and manipulative. But I'm not talking about the girl or how she is. I am talking about the type of manipulative that you can hold. So there's two different kinds of manipulatives. I'm talking about the one you can hold and move around. Everybody say that. The one you can hold and move around. Good. All right, the next word that we are talking about is benchmark number. Everybody say that. Benchmark number. Good. So my definition for benchmark number is a number that is easy to use or friendly, typically ending in 0 or 5. Good. What does it end in? 0 or 5. Good. Raise your hand and tell me an example of a benchmark number. Awesome. We can say 0, 5, 25, 50, 100, anything ending in 0 or 5. These are our friendly numbers. Good. Now, for illustration, you can draw a number line like I did, or you can just write the numbers again in the illustration. Awesome. Or you can think of another way to represent the numbers. So moving on to our sentence blocks, I wrote the sentence, I like benchmark numbers because they are easy to solve problems with. Who else can think of a sentence with the phrase benchmark number? Awesome. All right, our last box is our non-example. So benchmark number has 3 parts in it. I hear the word bench, I hear the word mark, and number. But am I talking about an actual bench? No. Am I talking about a mark like this one? No. And am I talking about a number like this one? No. So these are my non-examples for benchmark number. Very good. All right, moving on. A short phrase that I use a lot in this lesson is problem solve. Raise your hand if you've heard me say that before. Problem solve. Awesome. So we are going to talk about ways to solve a problem. So let's look at this word right here. Who knows what this says? Does anybody know what this word says? Synonyms. Good, good. So a synonym is a word that means the same. Can you guys say that? A word that means the same. Good. Let's read our synonyms of problem solve together. We have figure it out, overcome, problem solve, resolve, solve, and surmount. Good. Now I'm going to call on you to read my sentences that use my synonyms or words that mean the same. Good. All right. So the first sentence, if you figure out how to do or solve something, you find a way to do it. Good. Next sentence, if you overcome something, you stop it from being an obstacle to your goal. Good. Next one, if you problem solve, you figure out how to overcome obstacles and find a solution. Nice. In next sentence, if you resolve a problem, contradiction, or issue, you find a solution for it. Next, if you solve something, you find an answer or solution for it. If you surmount something, you overcome it. Awesome. So these are my examples and synonyms for the word problem solve. Now, when we talk about solving a problem in math, could we use these words as well? Some of them, you're right, we can use some of them. I can say, solve the problem. Or I can say, figure out the solution to the problem. Can I say overcome the problem? I wouldn't really say that for math. Problem solve, we talked about that. Would I say resolve the problem? I could. Now, I don't use that one too much, but I could say that. Solve the problem. Yep, and we talked about that one. How about surmount? Would I say surmount the problem? No, that's not one we really use for math either. Good. All right, and lastly, we talk about the phrase, what gets me to? So this is tricky. So this one, I am going to say, I have 6. So 6 is demonstrated on the number line right here, 6. I can say, what gets me to 14? Or what number gets me to 14? And on the number line, I would have to count and make my hops, right? We've practiced this strategy before. So I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when I say 6, what number gets me to 14? The answer is, everyone, 8. Good job. So that's an example of the phrase, what gets me to? Now, when I think of a non-example of that phrase, what gets me to? When I think of that, I sometimes think of travel. So I think the bus, the bus gets me to school. But is that what I'm talking about for math? No. Same thing with plane, train, bike, car, any form of transportation can get me to. These things can get me to, but I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking about this one, referring to numbers. Awesome. All right, class, go ahead and put your clipboards away and take your papers and pencils back to your seats. Okay, thank you for bearing with me through that somewhat awkward lesson. I'm a little bit limited as I don't have a class in front of me to demonstrate this with, but thank you for listening, and I appreciate it.